Hi, I want to talk to you for a few minutes about brainstorming. Brainstorming is a commonly used technique for creating new ideas. The problem with brainstorming is that it's sort of misunderstood. Generally what happens is people gather around a flip chart or some kind of a whiteboard and get thinking about different ways to do something, different aspects that a product might have, new ways to solve an interpersonal or corporate problem or maybe a customer problem. And people start generating ideas and they put the things up on the chart, and as they go along they get a little bit crazier and a little bit crazier and a little bit crazier, and pretty soon people start laughing and acting a little silly. At that point, the person running the meeting, usually a manager trying to get the best out of his or her people, will say, okay, we better stop now. This is getting kind of silly and we have serious work to do. Let's see if there's anything there we like, and if not, we'll try something else. Well, the point is, at the time people start getting silly is the time the real creativity is starting to happen. So the humor and the laughing and the coming up with crazy ideas is actually to be nurtured and supported and continued, not cut off. Here's a story about a time when a group was coming up with a creative idea about a situation they were managing. There was a factory that made the bases for lamps. They were ceramic bases, and the people in the assembly line who shipped the bases out of the plant wrapped them in newspaper and put them into corrugated boxes and then sent them out the door. When the people in charge of the company looked at the data for delivery of product, what they noticed was that they were missing their target. So they went down to the assembly and shipping line to see if they could figure out what was happening, and they noticed that when the people were packing these ceramic bases with the bubble wrap and the newspaper, they were actually reading the newspapers, stopping to look at interesting articles about sports and special events. And so some of the ceramic bases were going right by without being prepared for shipment, and some of them went into the room where things were rejected, some went around the circle twice, and it was cutting down their delivery. So they went upstairs to brainstorm what to do about this. And you can imagine some of the things they came up with. We'll turn off the lights. We'll get newspapers without print. We'll get newspapers in foreign languages. And on they went. And after a while it got a little silly and they came up with some crazy ideas. But the rule is you put everything up on your flip chart, you don't let anything go. So somebody wrote, why don't we poke their eyes out? Then when they went back to look at things that were intriguing and interesting, they had to notice that poke their eyes out was interesting. Now normally somebody would say, well, let me play devil's advocate about poke their eyes out. Devil's advocate is actually a permission to ruin an idea, to destroy an idea. Here's all the reasons why it won't work. I'll play the devil's advocate and destroy that idea because it's so stupid. So what we suggest is something different from devil's advocate. We call it the angel's advocate. What you do with the angel's advocate is you give your new idea some tender, loving care, TLC. And the TLC is actually a method. First you list what's tempting about the idea, then what's lacking in it, and then what you could change to make it a really great idea. So in the case of poke their eyes out, which they chose to review a little further, what's tempting about it is it would work. It would work really quickly, it would solve the problem. What's lacking from that idea is it's inhumane. You'd go to jail if you did it, you'd hurt people, on and on and on. So it's not a viable idea as it stands. But then we ask the question, what could we change about that idea to make it work? As opposed to just throwing it out with the devil's advocate approach, we ask, what could we do to change that kernel of an idea into something that would be a powerful solution? So they worked on that for a while and came up with things, and finally somebody said, well, we don't have to poke their eyes out, but what if we got people for whom their eyes had already been poked out? So they hired blind people. And when they hired blind people for the shipping line, the sighted people had to work to keep up. The blind people loved their work and they were grateful to have it. The town gave them tax write-offs, and a whole feeling of well-being developed having the people who were not sighted on the line. So by using that poke their eyes out crazy idea and going far enough so crazy ideas emerged, and using a TLC approach from the angel's advocate, they were able to turn a crazy dysfunctional idea into one that solved the problem in ways that they never could have imagined they could do.